Good evening. You're listening live to the Extreme Movie Show, the Extreme 80s. I'm your host, Rob. I'm broadcasting to you live from the Pine Hills Palace just west of Orlando, Florida. And of course, with me tonight is the real RDV. RDV, how are you tonight, sir?
I'm doing great.
I wanted to let you know personally, as we're just across the 700 subscriber threshold, that for tonight's movie, which is 1986's undiscovered gem masterpiece of 80s mayhem called Cobra, starring Sylvester Stallone, I have, in fact, a very special guest for us tonight. Do you want to know who that is?
Is it Angleton?
No, Angleton from I Love Comics is not a special guest. He's our typical guest here on Sunday nights. Unfortunately, something came up. He's unable to attend tonight, so we chose to go ahead and do this movie. But I have...
I bet you I know who it is.
Who?
Brian Thompson.
Strike two, sir. But that's a good guess, and I can't wait to talk more Brian Thompson as we talk about Cobra. I'll give you a third strike before you're out.
All right. I don't know. Who could it be?
That would be you not taking a swing, which you're always going to miss 100% of, sir. You're out of here. It's Stallone himself, Mr. Stallone. First of all, I'd like to thank you. RDV and I are great fans. We appreciate the fact that you're coming on to the Extreme Movie Show tonight to talk just for a moment about your masterpiece that nobody ever talks about. When they talk about Rocky and other things you've done, but Cobra itself. So how are you doing tonight? I'm doing good. So tell me, Stallone, what is it about this movie that's really great? Well, I'm in it. Well, yeah, I know that. RDV's a huge fan. He was gushing about the Shout Factory release on Blu-ray and how awesome it looks. So I myself went back and rewatched it. That's nice. So what's your favorite line in this movie? This is where the law stops and I start. Well, thank you for showing up tonight, Stallone, taking 15 minutes out of your time, 15 seconds to chat with us here on Extreme Movie Show. I'm real nervous because we're huge fans. Can't wait to listen to you again. No problem. All right, Doctor. Thank you. I want to thank Sylvester Stallone personally for showing up tonight there, too. Cobra, sir. RDV, what are your initial thoughts about this awesome movie?
I don't have initial thoughts. I'm just going to say I have Cobra thoughts when it comes to this. This movie, originally, it was, like I was telling you offline, I was looking this up earlier, and I was like, Stallone originally was supposed to be in Beverly Hills Cop, but they don't like the fact that he wanted to make it a comedy. He wanted to make it serious. So he said, you know what? I'll take my crap, but I'll go. And he ended up making a much better movie, in my opinion, than Beverly Hills Cop. I love Eddie Murphy. I love comedy. Judge Reinhold. But when it came to this, I love serious action movies. So, like I said, Beverly Hills Cop's great as comedy. But as far as action, I go with this movie every time. The opening with the supermarket and everything. Brian Thompson. Master.
That's the voice of Buffy reference on our voice on Buffy Vampire Slayer review. Yep.
Brian Thompson, he plays the same role. You notice that in a lot of his movies. Even what was it, the Fright Night 2, I believe it was. He has that distinct role, and he was a football player, if I recall correctly, right?
Sure, why not?
Got any acting? Well, you're the football guy. I figured you would have known this. But I thought I heard something about Brian Thompson being a former football player. Unless I'm thinking of the other guy from Out for Justice. No, not Out for Justice. It was the other one. What's Henriksen?
Lance Henriksen.
No. You know what I'm talking about. The guy that was on the Biker Cop. That was the other one. He was getting vengeance. Oh, Harrison was a bad biker guy.
You lost me already.
And Stone Cold. You never watched? You've never watched Stone Cold?
Oh, Brian Boshworth is who.
Yeah. It's the other Brian. So I always think of that guy. So yeah, I was thinking of Brian. Yeah.
Well, here's the thing about it. We joke about Stone Cold and Brian Boshworth. It's a lot of fun, and we will be reviewing that at some point here on the Extreme Movie Show. But you're right. Brian Thompson was a football player, smart dude, I believe. But here's the thing: before there was Stone Cold, there was Cobra, and I say not just Cobra, but the fact that there's this great introductory scene to it. So tell us about it, sir. Yeah, obviously it left a mark on you.
The opening scene?
Yeah, the grocery store scene.
Well, you got this thing playing first of all, how it opens up, the whole movie starts up. You're hearing the clash each time. That's the axes together, the Cult Club. There's flash there, and then it leads up to the grocery store, basically where here comes Cobra. He comes in like, he's like, he shows up, takes over the scene. They're gonna send Swanee. He's like, no, I'll do it myself. Goes in there. Yeah, and I just the guy's in there. The guy's freaking out. His guy's got a. Because the guy showed up on a motorcycle. That's the first clue. And he that's the bad guy. So he goes in there, shoots up the place, kills a couple of people. He's in there and is walking around and he's freaking out. He's like they're gonna kill you. And Stallone goes in there. He's like, and he shoots the bottle, knocks over the stacks of cereal box and stuff. He's like, you're gonna kill me. He's like, it's like, how can I trust you and all that stuff. And I love the whole thing with Stallone is like his characters. When he plays a role, he plays it serious and he plays it believable.
Right.
I was like, Stallone's not a cop, but the way that this is what we wanted. This is what I consider to be, oh, you're breaking the law. You can't do this, due process, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, when you're in there, once you break the law, you have no rights. I'm sorry. That's why I look at it. If you're in there, you shot, as soon as you kill someone, you're doing this stuff, I guess you're innocent until proven guilty. But at this point, when a cop sees you shoot someone, and the other people are laying there dead, it looks really bad for you. At that point, the cop has the right to put you down. That's my street justice, bro. That's what I say.
But speaking of street justice, I think the thing that you mentioned at the beginning might be sacrilege to a lot of people in the 80s, but I think there's an element of truth to it when you say that a movie like Beverly Hills Cop is a great comedy movie, but it's obviously not a cop movie, and I agree with you, whereas this is a cop movie. And here's the thing, both movies I believe are supposed to be set in LA, obviously Beverly Hills here, and I think maybe Venice Beach, let's say. But the thing is in the 80s, you still see how in Beverly Hills Cop, how it's a great, wonderful place to be and how it's happy and everyone's smiling and this and that. And the reality is when you see movies like with John Carpenter that were filmed in LA, in my opinion, the way it looks like a dump. I'm thinking of They Live, a masterpiece by one of his best movies, of course. But to me, when you watch this movie, what I like about it is the Stallone says, hey, this is a movie. It's about a guy that's kind of a lone wolf, does it on his own. And to your point, he takes it very seriously. He literally almost says hardly nothing in here. And to me, they portray LA as the seedy, grungy crap hole that it is and pretty much always has been, despite the glitziness and glamour of other 80s type movies. And that's the thing about the 80s that we've talked about, say in our top 10 Tuesdays with Anglington from I Love Comics, is that, okay, we saw in the mid to late 70s kind of this breaking of movies that are completely unrealistic, and then in the 80s they went over the top. And the wonderful thing about 80s movies is they're so bombastic, they have a certain style to them. This movie in itself, like we mentioned with Rad recently, or even Gleaming the Cube, you can't get more 80s than this type of a movie. And whether you think the Cobra type character in here that Stallone plays is just a derivative, nobody cares. When the movie came out, it did not get great reviews. Nobody cares. When that movie came out, people said Stallone's in it. He's got some great lines. He's beating the crap out of people. He's got that Clint Eastwood sense of justice in this movie to further your point. That's what people want. He gives it to them. And I will say this, Brian Thompson, who we joked about here, this is pretty much his first real big time role on screen. So to have him talking like this and speaking rather eloquently is just a nice contrast to how Stallone speaks, because everyone goes, well, Stallone mumbles his way through dialogue. And actually, for those of you like Joe Rogers just coming in, I have a hookup. I have a brother that worked in the industry in LA, and he knows some people over the years. He's been doing it for 20, 30 years now. Thankfully, he got one of my favorite guys of all time, Stallone, and I got him online for about 10, 15 seconds, maybe just to answer a few questions. I really appreciate Stallone for doing that. But yeah, the contrast between these two are perfect. It's got music montages, death montages, and it's got a weird car and character gun. But yeah, this whole opening scene, Doctor, where they're in the grocery store and you got the guy all hopped up, it's not going to end well for him. And it doesn't. And it's beautiful. And people would get triggered by it now. But back then, a few people were like, well, I don't understand. That's kind of violent. You're like, no, I totally get it. As a former stock boy working my way through school, because I was no stripper, I mean, it reminds me of how you, me, Professor Bixer, and Dalton, who just recently covered Ash versus Evil Dead season 1 episodes 1 and 2 earlier tonight, calling ourselves the Value Shop Boys, what it's like to be in a friggin' stock market. So tell me, sir, grocery store scene, it gets me every time. What is it you like about the scene that's so memorable for you?
Love the Pepsi, man. Like I said, the destruction in the grocery store. It's like we've always thought about what happens, in these apocalyptic movies, where there's always a gas station fight scene. You're watching the bullets just rip through all these, sodas, the beer, the coolers, and all that stuff. And it's like destruction, man. Everybody loves that. And like I said, they're all hired over there. And I love how he just if I remember correctly, he used his reflection to fool the guy, and then he just shot him multiple times in the chest.
Well, you have an ethnic person taking somebody hostage, or they obviously hopped up on drugs at the time. It's some people get triggered at the way people are portrayed and everything. But bottom line is he's a scumbag. And T.J. Hooker in the great 80s cop show there too would just tell you he's a scum. He's got to pay for it and all that. And one thing about this opening scene too that was becoming more prevalent, and I think one reason why people like these types of anti-heroes in a way, is that you see government agents, in this case police officers, as bumbling idiots. And somewhere they went from being professional, knowing what they were going to do, to only being professional and somewhat competent in detective shows. Mentioned Spencer for Hire, The Equalizer, but again, more of a lone wolf type thing. But here, Stallone comes in, he's chewing a match, he's got the great glasses on, you get all the nerdy types standing around, and it's a stupid guy inside of a grocery store holding people hostage. And to your point, it's filmed on location, it looks great, but you can knock so much shit over in a grocery store and nobody cares. It's just great because it's like wrestling. It's like, okay, I'm going to run into the guard post, make a big loud sound, and that's it. It's not really a lot of destruction, but it's mayhem. And there's something just visceral about it that initially just hooks you into this movie.
And like I said, the Warner Brothers did not like this. Neither the MPAA, Stallone. If you look at the director commentary and stuff, how he originally had 130 minutes going for this movie. He had to cut it down to like 2 hours for the director's cut.
Have you seen the director's cut?
Oh my gosh,
I have not.
So the first murder victim was supposed to, from the cult go around. They're basically white supremacists, basically what they are. Not really white supremacists because they're just going after women.
Right.
And the first murder victim was supposed to have her. He said supposed to have her throat cut and her hand severed off. And then another one was supposed to have an Asian American child that delivers a wrapped present to the LAPD office, as instructed by one of the members in New York, the world. And he said he was talking about how the officer told the child to say it, and then when he unwraps it, the president discovers a trace of blood coming from the box. There's and then they open the box. There's a cryptic message and stuff inside the mouth of the actual head. I mean, this was supposed to be really violent. He's like even though the other stupid scene got cut, he said it was like in the autopsy scene when they're showing the first victim, one of the many victims. They said there's supposed to be more dead bodies in there. He wanted to have more linger shots of the naked and mutilated bodies of the women for more impact. Like he said, I this is what it is. He wanted people to see it. Hey, this is what really happens. This isn't just Hollywood. No, this is what really happens. This is what the bodies look like. And to get people in the head, this is why we have, laws. This is why we know. To basically get people to realize, what? Guns aren't bad. Guns save people. And when this was made, was I guess I imagine it's been going on since the late 70s, and then all the way through the 80s. The whole gun control crap.
50s and 60s even.
And then especially with here in Los Angeles. Los Angeles is really strict on guns over there.
Yeah.
And people are like, "Oh, guns are bad." I'm like, "Well, the bad guys still use guns, but I'll wait for the cops to show up. Cops don't show up until you're dead." No, but anyway, like I said, we're getting off track. But I'm saying he wanted to make this as authentic as it, and that's what Stallone does. Whenever he does his movies, even look at Rambo, the very first Blood. Like I said, it's nothing. When he's in there, he's talking about, "Oh, my friend, I watched my friend blow up. There's pieces. I tried to put the pieces back together and stuff about the war. How and we're winning, and then they pulled us out. He puts truth into his movies, and I guess this was really triggered the critics. The critics hated this movie when it came out, totally ripped on it. But then it became a box office success, and it's still a cult classic today. It made a lot of money, despite these people complaining, "Oh, I don't like this." Oh, boo hoo. So what?
You get more action here in like the first 10, 15 minutes of this
I
movie.
know.
You're doing a lot of stuff, and it pretty much is a good summary for what's about to happen. There's no romantic interlude for the most part. You get your, like I say, your 80s montages coming up. You got an interesting villain to it. So, like I say, it is an underrated gem because when it came out at the time, I'm in full-blown Stallone fan, had been for about 10 years at this point. So anything that he had, I would go see. And so the scene, is kind of neat because one of the great things that Stallone's able to do, like some others, is deliver lines with a straight voice. And to your point, trying to make it sound like realistic, even though the lines themselves are stupid. Like, this guy, he's got some hostages or whatever like that, and he's kind of stalking him, scoping out the lay of the grocery store there. And you got this, evil synthesizer music playing like from the 80s. And he's like, go ahead. I don't shop here, I mean, and all the lines too are just fantastic, crime is a disease. I'm the cure. And he's, there's no smile while he's saying it. I'm like, that's hard to do because you're going, man, this is silly, this is over the top. But to your point, he delivers it great. And that's what hooks you about this. He's chewing the matchstick, the wooden one. Like I say, he's got the glasses on. He looks great in here. He's got a look. And so maybe not so much for the bad guys, but there's, of course, Bridget Nielsen in here, who was super popular, his wife at the time. So it's no surprise she was in here. But let's talk about the bad guys, because we always say a movie can only be as good as the bad guys. At your point, they're kind of like white supremacists and everything else there too. But, he's not like a rich cop. He's not somebody that's getting yelled at by a superior. It's all about him hunting down this guy and this group of guys that are doing really nasty stuff, which, to your point, probably in the director's cut, would have shown you a bit more of that, and actually made this border almost on horrific, type of movie rather than an action movie, because there's definitely some elements to it where you're like, no, this is not a happy movie. There's some cute, stupid lines and everything in there, and it's everybody around him is a bumbling idiot for the most part. But when you see the bad guys, this sounds really stupid, but it's a positive for Brian Thompson in his first role with his unique face. He's got these strong jaw and cheekbones, not effeminate by any means, but he's a very studly looking guy. He's not, 5'7", 150 or whatever. He's a big dude. I mean, he's very fit, but very smooth looking. And when he talks like this, and the silly thing is, when you put pantyhose over their heads, they all look kind of creepy, legitimately. And it's such a simple thing to do. Don't you agree?
Yeah. So, like I said, they should. This movie needs to be. Well, I guess they released it on Shout Factory. So, I'm not sure if the Shout Factory has the full cut of all the scenes that were cut out, extra 30 minutes.
Right.
And but yeah, this, like I said, this is one of my favorite movies to go back to with Stallone. There's even, if you fast forward to this, where he's seen where he's sitting there, after the grocery store scene, he goes and he's sitting there, he goes home. The guys show up, the gang, the Latino gang, the street gang. They're gonna hey, I like your eye and stuff. They're like, we old man, and kind of just looks at him. He's like, and I love how the one guy is like, I'm a tough guy, and then it's like he kind of backs down. Then they make fun of him. He's like, whatever. I was like, I had him where I wanted to. He just ran away like a little punk. And I just love it. And he doesn't care because he's like, what are they gonna do? I mean, he's gonna kick their ass if they touch him. I mean, the guy won't. They're just punks. He goes in and he sits down. He takes out I think it was out of the refrigerator. I think it takes out. He takes out
pizza.
Yeah, pizza.
Whole pizza with sexy sax playing. Yeah, this is one of my favorite scenes in the whole movie.
And he opens it up, and in there's a gun. He has a gun in there, Uzi.
And he's taking the pizza and it's cold, and he's cutting with the scissors. I'm like, what the hell's going on? But he's cleaning his gun, having a slice or two of some cold pizza. And there's nothing going on except for he's watching some news or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, this is great. It's just so 80s. It's sunset. You get the view of the beach in the background, and you're like, I don't know why, but it fits. It's just, yeah, it's Stallone at this point can pretty much do no wrong when it comes to a movie, and people can say whatever you want about the way he looks, his acting skills, allegedly the way he talks, all this stuff. Nobody cares. And that's where I think a lot of people miss the boat when it comes to 80s films in general. You can think that something like Beverly Hills Cop is silly and stupid and not really an action film. That's not. It's a comedy buddy cop dopey thing. It's a feel-good popcorn type of movie for the 80s, and that's great. There's plenty of them. E.T. is one we've talked about in our top 10, Tuesdays shows of, say, 1982, 83 when it came out. I wasn't the biggest E.T. fan, still not. I preferred more darker type material. So I agree with you. I would lean towards Cobra with this kind of movie to watch, because every now and then you're like, man, I gotta watch me some Cobra. It's been a while since I've seen that. And the reason why is because as one or two or lightly dimensional character, some people might call this character, it's memorable. And we don't really care about the plot. We really don't care about its message. We don't really care about anything else going on. It's got some cool lines. It's got Stallone doing it. And that's what makes a movie rewatchable. There's just some really neat stuff about it. And like I say, for Brian Thompson, pretty much an unknown at this point as a bad guy to come up, leader of a gang, the dude's got some serious screen presence. Now, I know, Doctor, you and I recently had covered on the show Masters of the Universe with Dolph Lundgren. The problem with that movie is Dolph himself, he can speak English. He's one of the smartest people on the planet, literally. He's a very smart guy, great looking guy, very athletic guy. He's got skills. But some people thought that, hey, his talking needs refinement. We're not going to have him speak a lot in this movie, just be eye candy. So you took somebody like Frank Langella, who's a fantastic stage actor and movie actor, played Dracula in the late 70s. He was really the vehicle that moved the movie along. But you get somebody like this with Stallone, he has a pretty good eye at picking somebody like Brian Thompson and other people to be in the movie that really, I think, makes it a bit better than it probably should be. What were you going to say?
I was going to say, continuing with this, not only is the movie great, the music is great too. You got Robert Tepper again here, who also was on the Rocky song.
You know what song? You know what Rocky song he's famous for, right?
Yeah, No Easy Way Out.
There's no easy way out.
He's driving the car. Right. So he brings this in the song Angel in the City, which still today, if this comes on, like, if you're playing Grand Theft Auto or Vice City or anytime it's on the radio, I knew exactly what movie it's from, because I picture like Angels. You hear the clashes of the axes together in this, Robert Tepper, is, as I feel, he's probably underrated. I mean, he had some good hits, but yeah, he also I think he also did some other songs too, other than Angel in the City. I think he did. Did he do Feel the Heat? No, that's right. That's someone else.
Well, I'm going to put you on the spot here for a moment about this film after I make this comment too. So, I don't typically do this with you, but it's an interesting fact, and that's the only reason why I'm going to, like I said, put you on the spot. But there's a scene in here that reminds me of what you were talking about at the beginning about how much darker, graphic, and grittier this would be. And I'm really curious. I think I'm going to see if I can't find me a copy of the director's cut to see all that extra dark material that you're talking about. But the montage in here, like I say, with the bad dudes running around and the driving, of course, at night, you see a lot of shots of the LA skyline and cityscapes. And I've always mentioned before, as we talk about the fashion of the 80s and even the 70s with Chuck Norris and tracksuits and members only jackets and all sorts of wonderful stuff that we only scratched the surface on, is this. When you're talking the city landscapes, what comes to mind in the 80s is, driving around downtown late at night, and the montage is playing. You get something like Miami Vice and other shows. It's not just a montage. It's kind of really the heart of what the whole synthwave music of the past, say, 10 years kind of has tried to, emulate going back. This driving while the sun's getting ready to set and the street lights are coming out and you're, somewhat tropical, in this case, LA, as opposed to, say, Miami or Florida or somewhere else. And that's one of the things that shooting on location, like even some Chuck Norris films, we did Code of Silence when we were in Chicago. We loved that movie, how it was set and filmed there. But here's the thing I was going to put you on a spot with, Doctor. What do this movie, and then, of course, we talked about Mandy and Beyond the Black Rainbow with Nick Cage movies. What do these three movies have in common? Do you know?
They all feature an axe and a lot of blood.
That's true. Damn it, that's good. The guy that directed Mandy, Cosmatos, I think is his last name, Panos Cosmatos, his father directed this movie. Oh. So it was interesting. Yeah, and it's interesting because the director of this movie, there is a certain style to this movie that, even though it's got the 80s elements, it does have a look and feel to it that if you watch Mandy and you've watched Beyond the Black Rainbow, I couldn't stop gushing over myself how wonderful they looked as a film. And for somebody that's only done 2 films, and he was around the filming of this and a couple other things growing up, I think it's kind of cool, really. I mean, I think it's kind of badass, actually. Oh, the guy that directed Cobra? Yeah, that's him. I mean, and by now, Stallone has a hand in just about everything, the writing, the directing, and all that. So
who's also here, other than Stallone and Bridget Nielsen, the great Art LaFleur.
Yes.
He plays Captain Sears in this.
Yes.
He was in Son and Empeg, I think, with what's his name? Jean-Claude Van Damme. He's been in some other movies too. This was like he's also The Sandlot. No, sorry. That wasn't the name. It was Death Warrant. That's what he's in. Dude was also in Trancers, another one of my favorite movies. Air America. The Sandlot is really he's known for because he played Babe. He played Babe Ruth.
Well, just to take a moment to kind of quickly mention what the movie is about. Obviously, you mentioned how the killer's here. It's the first time for me growing up as a kid, I'm starting to hear about alternative history type things like New World Order and all that way before the WCW wrestling faction and globalists and Illuminatis and all these kinds of things that, Freemasons, all that stuff that, we could always go down that rabbit hole. But I think that what's interesting here in this movie is that, like I say, you've got a lot of great elements to it. It's kind of shot well. It really is. You can look at it superficially and go, oh, it's just a one-off. Stallone just fit this movie in just to make some money because it was so hot and it was kind of a throwaway. I don't think that way at all. And to me, even though it has all these 80 elements, there's something about it that's really cool. And when you watch and you just experience it, you just go, yeah, it's pretty good too. And frankly, he's got a watch Brigitte Nielsen's character. She's like the supermodel chick or whatever because she survived, and they end up kind of having this big thing at the end where he kills just about everybody on the way to it. But just there's not much to it. There's no swerves, there's no big messages, and a lot of times that's just perfect. But yeah, this movie when it came out, like I say, I distinctly remember everybody going, I don't care if you don't like it, I'm going to go watch it. And you know what? One of the great reasons why everybody likes this movie, besides everything we've talked about this point, Doctor, is this: it's a canon classic, like many of our Chuck Norris movies, so it's automatically going to be good.
I want to apologize. Earlier, I had said I wasn't sure how Stallone took out the guy in the beginning. I just remembered he threw a knife at the guy, and I think it stuck in his leg or abdomen, and that caused him because Stallone had put his gun down on the ground because the guy's like, I'll shoot you, put your gun down. So he put his gun down, threw the knife at him, and then grabbed the gun and shot him. But yeah, he wasn't. There wasn't this group. They're called the New World. They're not. I mistakenly said I thought they were white supremacists. They're not. They're just what they are radicals about their Darwinisms. They basically they are Darwinisms. We see on stupid idiots. They believe in that if you're only the strong should survive. You're not strong, we'll kill you. And the whole plot of this, it really touched much on the plot, but. A model played by Bridget Nielsen, and I think at the time was banging Stallone, or was going to, and
at this point.
She basically witnesses them killing one of the leader in the group killing someone. So they basically she's a witness. They want her dead, so they target her. And Stallone is known as his name is called him. The reason they call him Cobra because his last name's Cobretti. But I love the fact that he's like, he's in there. He's got the toothpick in his mouth the whole entire time. He's got the glasses, and they're like, Cobra. Like everybody hates. All the cops hate him. He's like, fine, Cobra, you do what you want to do because he does what he wants to do. He's a badass cop. He's like, he's unhinged, as one guy said. I love the fact that he's smarter than most of the people in the cops, and that's that does play part of the trope. The main lead has to be smarter than the people around him, but not too smart, much smarter. He theorized that there's more than one killer because he said because the guy said in the beginning he said, hey, there's more than there's a bunch of us. We're the new world order, and the one I remember his cop, it was Art LaFleur, said he's crazy. They're not connected at all, right. And so he's like, okay. So I love, like, it leads. It basically comes down to the point where it's like him putting on a protective custody of the girl, Bridget Nielsen, and it comes down to the point where he basically does what he does best, and he protects himself because he can't trust anybody else. He doesn't know if they have a mole in the police force or not, because that's the way the 80s tropes go. It's just, you don't know. And being an action movie, it really helps out too. That he takes her to a motel, not to have sex with her. Get that on your mind, Rob. No,
I know that. It's a chain of custody issue. Back then, it's much harder to track you down because you weren't connected and everything.
Yeah, there was no smartphones.
That's correct.
He puts on his, like, what he put on his little flannel shirt he had or whatever it was.
He almost breaks a smile.
Yeah. Oh, and I just love, like, it basically comes out and then you find out the end, like, and I don't know if you want to talk about anything else before I get to the end part, but the end part is Stallone was right. He basically was like, there's a whole bunch of them. There's like a whole, either they're all on bikers, there's biker gangs, squads, people trying to kill him on the motorcycle. There's a scene where they actually almost killed him too. His car, which is a sweet looking 1950s. Was it? It had been what was it? It was a Mercury. That's what it was. A Mercury lead sled. That's what they called it. And it had nitrous sucking Chev small block on there because it had the big block. It would have sounded a lot louder if it had a big block in there. But
here's the thing: nobody cares if Stallone was like, "Yeah, I'm just making this movie." They don't care. I mean, you're so OD'd on Stallone at this point that you're like, "Yeah, here's take my money, please." It's just that kind of a movie.
Well, that's the thing, though. He's like, "I'm gonna put this car in here because or put this car in here because this car is badass." We went, no, we went old school because at the time, 80s, remember they just did another movie with that, with Dillinger and stuff, with Sean Connery and Untouchables.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was, remember where was that, early 90s?
It might have been 1990, actually.
1990, but no, like you said, like, still in the 80s, people, they love doing throwbacks to old stuff. And it made sense for somebody like, what? He's from the Zombie Squad. Guy this, he's going to have a car to stand up from everybody else. And I think that was Stallone's, I think that was his choice to have that car. I don't think anybody had a say in that. He's like, you know what? I'm going to go with this. A nice old Mercury, 1950s, and are gonna make it badass. We're gonna put NOS in it. It's like, because hot rods were back then too. So it still is today. There's people who buy cars like that and soup them up. So like it wasn't. You're not getting like a Gran Torino or like that or any of those weird 70s cars. No, he's like, I'm going old school. I'm gonna make it and I'm just gonna have it flat black paint. It looks like it is primer. It doesn't look like they even painted the finishing paint.
Yeah, and I think really for me, like just kind of finishing up here a little bit with some final thoughts for me is that, yeah, I enjoy the movie. I like it. I don't think it sucks. Or let's just put it this way. It's my Moonraker of Stallone films because I find Moonraker to be very enjoyable as a James Bond film. I know I defend it mercilessly, especially because of how great the villain is near Hugo Drax and other things about it. And this kind of reminds me that way too. It's a guilty pleasure. If Stallone checked out and they filmed this in a month, I don't care. Brian Thompson, if you turned out to be a nobody and was a one-off, I don't care. It's got everything about it. And what's interesting thinking about some of the stuff you talked about, how dark and gritty material was really left out, a lot of it, which make it a lot darker. It can be kind of grim. But that's one of the things about the 80s, that there's almost a cynical underside that gets teased a little bit, which I don't think was the main focus of a lot of movie directors or TV show people. And it has to do with like going back to Clint Eastwood in the early 70s movies with Dirty Harry, where you're a cop, you're doing your job, you know what you're supposed to do, you do it, but then the frustration in the adult world in the movie is the fact that you run into big government, which kind of drags things down. And while that's a bit of a libertarian sort of perspective, somewhat, or conservative to some people as things have gone on, I think a lot of times by the 80s, when cops are being made to look stupid and competent, people I think unintentionally were showing how bad a big group of cops, how dumb they can be, how bumbling, stumbling idiots they could be. And so the buddy cop thing was always great, but that always kind of, I think, distracted comedy-wise from what was really going on. And you take somebody like a Cobra, you take somebody like Dirty Harry, or somebody like I always joke with T.J. Hooker, played by William Shatner in the 80s, or even Miami Vice, which is super popular. you had people boots on the ground doing work, knowing what's going on, and they had to report to people that really didn't know what the hell they were doing. And that was always interesting to me watching from a kid. But again, they never got into it too much. But now as an adult watching it, some of these older things I think have a little bit more meat to them because you can appreciate it from that. Plus, enjoy the stupid stuff like cutting your pizza with the scissors and like, really not even eating it.
So, so I said this movie is a pro cop movie. So if you're an anti-cop, you want to defund the police, don't watch it. Please don't watch it, or do watch it. Get triggered, but you're never going to cancel this movie because I have it on DVD. I can watch it whenever I want to.
Well, Johnny in chat said that he wants to see the X-rated cut too. And was it Johnny you and I were talking about that said he got his copy of Rad recently?
I think so.
Okay, Johnny, I thought that was you. So there was definitely a live chat. I tweeted that out with the original people. It's probably still out there on YouTube now that you can go watch. That's kind of cool. Yeah, there's just been 80s in the air, Doctor, recently. I don't know what to make of that.
I love the ending scene though. With Brian and I love it. It's like when he's like, well, let's bleed, pig, and he's like, you want to go to hell, pig? You want to go to hell with me? Doesn't matter, does it? We're the hunters. We kill the weak, so the strong survive. So I was like, you can't stop the new world. Your filthy society will never get rid of people like us. It's breeding them. We are the future. And someone's like, no, your history. And then he puts him, and I love it. He knocks him back, and he gets the hook, impales him from the back, the meat hook.
Yep.
Which didn't make sense to me because they're fighting in a grapefruit factory or plantation factory. So it's like, why is there a hook there? I guess for hooking the crates, maybe. Crane?
Sure.
I don't know. Yeah. That's what it's for.
Dirty, gritty warehouse. There's probably a fog machine going off too, because that was really common in the 80s, along with wet sidewalks.
But they said that like Stallone said that the ending scene where the hook goes through Brian Thompson from the back there at the very end. They actually wanted to show it, and actually wanted to show it actually the blood more coming out, like So I went through his chest, but they didn't really show it. They showed him hanging there, but he wanted to show the actual hook coming through with the inside and actually show the front part. It wasn't so. And was it last year they're talking about making this into an actual TV series, but they're not. But Robert Rodriguez would be the one to be directing it. Now, if it's on El Rey,
yes,
well, I wouldn't mind
because his network. I agree with you
because I love what he did with From Dusk Till Dawn.
Yes, and
turned it into a great series. Now they could do it on there. They could do this TV series. Now, as far as they also said, I'm not sure if they're going to make a movie. It could be either Robert said they might do a TV or might do a movie. I hope he does a TV series. And because like I said, when I first heard that Robert Rodriguez and Quentin Tarantino we're gonna they're gonna do like From Dusk Till Dawn TV series. Like, well, how are you gonna do that? Because like it got horrible after the first one. So the way they did it is like they ignored the second two film, the second and third film I think was that franchise. Yep. And they just did the first one, focused on that, expanded it more. They got in DJ Cortana, which is an awesome actor there to play. What's his name? George Clooney's role. And they even had the same gun and everything. It was like, it's a stop no 45. they involved the gas station scene too from the movie and all that stuff. So like I said, like. I hope if they says I get it on the El Rey network, I have every faith that Robert Rodriguez will do this movie as an awesome TV series, and I hope he lets Stallone in there too, help with it because I don't want to be where it's not like as much like because that's one thing what did happen with unfortunately with From Dusk Till Dawn. He strayed away from the source material for the later seasons, but. I want him to keep this as much close as possible as a Cobra movie. I want the zombie squad. I want the freaking pizza in the refrigerator with the gun. I want it, and I want it set in the 80s. I don't want it. Yeah. I don't want to update it. I want to keep the 80s, man. Nobody cares about the 2000s or stuff. Everybody's got smartphones. Blah blah blah. No, well, what a lot of us growing up now, we love the 80s. I was born in 85. I went back in my teens were in the 90s. And I went back. I was watching the 80s movies. Why? Because it actually had a much better feeling to it.
Yes.
Just the way they did things. And you're not relying on freaking CG crap now. We don't have to do plots about. Whoa, this person saw them with a smartphone. No, it's like no. I want it back then where like if you call you only had the the rotary phone or you had the touch tone phone. So you can't just go, I'm going to go on the internet. No, you look up things. No, you actually had to do police detective work. You had to go out and do stuff. You couldn't just look it up on the internet.
Well, I think you bring up a good point. We mentioned that before about how this could show up as a potential TV series on El Rey. El Rey's done some really wonderful things. Their Lucha Underground show for wrestling was great. You know, last season or two might be a bit different than the first two, but some great stuff in that. Really enjoyed it. Cobra, again, is a character. Yeah, maybe everything is a throw off, and it was nominated for a lot of bad stuff. But bottom line is, it's entertaining. If you haven't seen it, go see it. If you have seen it, go see it again. And if you're really a diehard Stallone fan, try and find the director's cut, like according to RDV and people in channel like Johnny, who's an aficionado of those things too. So yeah, I agree with you. It's a fun movie. Like a lot. I can't wait to talk about the TV show, should they ever do it.
And one line is always stuck with this movie from the Cobra Stallone movie is his line he says to everybody else. He's like, as long as we play by these bullshit rules and the killer doesn't, we're going to lose. And that's true.
I play by my own set of rules.
The opening is like, in America, there's a burglary every 11 seconds. Robbery every 65 seconds. Crime every 25 seconds.
Oh, yes, it's the stat stuff.
250 rapes a day.
It's
you're a disease. I'm the cure.
Yeah, Johnny's saying in the chat that Ryan Gosling had a matchstick in Drive to honor Cobra. Yeah, that's kind of cool. Hey, again, we just talk movies. We talk some TV stuff we enjoy and have fun with. You know, we're not super critical on a lot of things, but I do think we have a certain fondness for the 80s that pops its head, and hopefully we'll be able to cover some more themes like these as they continue. There's plenty more to cover.
Johnny's saying that the TV cut was different than the actual theater cut. The TV, I'm curious, what were because the TV is always they cut out the squares. What were they replace it with? If you remember, Johnny, like did they say fudge?
It depends if the actor himself was contracted to do the B-level words for a TV release or whatever. Seriously, and on all those rights kind of stuff. Sometimes you could have a different actor doing them entirely. So I don't know, but they usually cut out the violence and all the nudity and stuff. It's a real shame, but that's why everyone loved watching the only cable channel for the most part, HBO, even though it was Cinemax. And this would definitely be an HBO type movie.
Yeah, go ahead. I don't shop here.
Go ahead. I don't shop here. It's not my beer. Yeah. Or, I will close on this as we say goodnight. Eglinton's favorite line from this movie, if I recall correctly, is basically the time when you watch the scene where he pulls out the gun, like I think he's busted through a door and he's like, freeze, bam, 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 bam. It makes me laugh every time he tells it. He's like, God, I can't believe they did that. Yep, that's Cobra. All right, Doctor, thanks for showing up tonight. Eglinton, hope you're feeling better for Tuesday night too. We'll talk to you by then. Guys, thank you for showing up. Johnny, good to see you, and everybody else there too, Joe Rogers. Great movie, Cobra. Go see it. For the doctor, for myself, stay extreme. Have a good night, everybody.
And Cabrera, do you know you have an attitude problem? Yeah, but it's just a little one.
Good night.